So I think Undertale is my favorite game. I hesitate on that a bit because it's only a year old, so it's impossible to say how the game will look 5, 10, or 20 years from now. I knew as soon as I finished the game that whether or not it would be remembered fondly by the general gaming public, I'd always remember it as the game that kept me alive during one of the worst parts of my life. Let me give that some context. Undertale was released September 15th, 2015, but like most people, I bought it in mid-October amid the sudden chorus of support for the game that seemed to bubble up out of thin air. I played the first hour or so, walked away, and kinda meandered onto different things, which is a bad habit of mine across all media. But I finally finished it January 13th, 2016, with the true pacifist ending. Now there is a lot of over-the-top rhetoric about Undertale, but I think it's fairly innocuous to say that it's an emotional game. Maybe not for everybody, but its blend of earnest sincerity, hokey humor, and complicated characters makes it easy to get invested in the world. At a time when even indie games felt the need to be dark, morally ambiguous tales of quote-unquote maturity, Undertale was this optimistic and genuine exploration of what it means to be a gamer, what it means to be a friend, what it means to have family, and what it means to lose people. For me, a big part of Undertale's success hinges on its Steven Universe-esque hopefulness in the face of devastating and seemingly impossible odds. Without that, Undertale is just another cynical fourth-wall-breaking retro game. But because it takes that old anime promise of, with the power of friendship, anything is possible so seriously, so realistically, the characters end up feeling like your closest friends. It's because of this that the last 2 hours of the game had me quietly sobbing the whole time, because it all felt so real to me. At the end, when all your friends come together to urge you onward, it doesn't feel like a scene out of a bad anime, it feels earned. And it helps, of course, that the game knows it's knee-deep in tropes as old as time and never misses a chance to wink at that fact. Undertale feels like a joke you're in on, a joke you're telling with a friend, a joke that turns into a story. So all of that in mind, it makes sense that someone like me, a diagnosed major depressive with no money for medication, would latch onto that thread of hopefulness. See, my mom died when I was 19, and in the years since, I've known a lot of other people to die. And it's something I don't think I've ever really dealt with. Undertale hit me so hard because one of its deepest moral lessons is how bottling up emotion is ultimately and invariably destructive. When I finished the game, I had this sense like I'd actually figured something out, like the game had helped me in that regard. When everyone cheers you on in the end, it felt like they were talking to me. I kept thinking of them as my friends. I kept thinking, they want me to keep going. They're encouraging me from the other side of the screen. Maybe it's silly, but that's how I felt, and I feel like that's how a lot of people feel. Even just listening to the soundtrack, I feel this groundswell of emotion, this sense of warmth and welcome and acceptance, this genuine, earnest beacon of light in a world I often fail to see as anything other than shadows. So like I said, I beat Undertale on January 13th. On the 14th, I got a call from one of my uncles telling me that my dad had passed away. It was something that was both a little expected and entirely out of the blue. We'd struggled to stay in touch since my parents split when I was 12, so we weren't exactly close, but I'd been writing him letters, trying to get us to reconnect since I knew his health was declining. His death wasn't the cataclysm my mother's was, but it was still devastating, which, that tells you a lot about my life that I have a yardstick for death impact. Anyway, as soon as I got the news, I felt myself close up. Almost like it was muscle memory, like, okay, time to cut ties with friends and retreat from the world for a while so nothing can get to me, so no one can remind me how much pain I'm in. I broke up with my partner, I dropped out of school, I stopped going to my job, normal, healthy coping mechanisms. All because I didn't want to feel anything, because I was afraid to let myself go. You can imagine the kind of mindset that isolation put me in, me, the guy who's fought depression almost as long as he's been alive. But every time I felt like it was too much, like I just didn't want to deal with anything anymore, I'd put on the Undertale soundtrack. Sounds. It talked me off the ledge every time. Because like I said, by the end of Undertale, I'd started thinking of those characters as my friends. And and the music felt like a message from them, a reminder of our adventures together. I could see them in my mind, encouraging me to keep going, smiling with open arms, telling me, yeah, it's hard, but we're all hurting. Nobody in Undertale is without their share of fears, doubts, anxieties. The pacifist ending hinges on you literally reviving every main character by counteracting their self-hatred with encouragement. And the main antagonist, after all the forms he takes, ends up being a child who was afraid to feel things, who lost his humanity to his cynicism. I find it hard to express how much of myself I see in Azrael because I get it. It's easy to withdraw from the world, to cut off your emotions, to pretend a cynical detachment and act like everything is meaningless. But that mindset only further distances you from the people who care about you, which ultimately creates a feedback loop where you start believing the bullshit you fed yourself. And no, Undertale didn't stop me from cutting myself off from the world when my dad died, but it was a reminder that that wasn't the end, that my friends would still be there for me if I came back, even if I thought I didn't deserve it. Undertale didn't save my life, and I don't think any game or movie or anything ever could, but it did help me to save myself. When my mom died, it was years before I started to feel normal again, but in this case, it only took a few months. And this is what I think is most important about Undertale, and it's the same thing that I love about Steven Universe. There's no fiction in existence, no matter its craft, that can stop bad things from happening to you. But when a story is honest, when its characters are emotionally complex, when they feel somehow emblematic of something you see in yourself, that can make all the difference when bad things happen. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. I know that was a really heavy video, but that's just kind of what comes with the territory because my dad died after I finished the game. I can't change how that affected me, so that's what the video was about, you know? I really wanted to make a video for the 1-year anniversary of Undertale, and I thought a lot about celebrating its design, celebrating its music, celebrating any number of the things that it does that are really fantastic that I'll probably end up covering later on. But what I keep coming back to is the ultimate impact that it had, which is, yeah, it kept me alive after my dad died. That's just been a really unique experience from a game. No other game has had that same kind of impact on me. And I also think that it's potentially coincidental. I don't think that this means that Undertale is the ultimate suicide prevention game. It's more that it was the right place at the right time, or the right thing at the right time for me. But that said, it can't hurt to play it if you're somebody who's feeling a little defeated by the world, because there are people in that game that will be there for you if you let them, which is nice. Subscribe to the channel for more content of this particular variety, if that is what you want. Otherwise, you can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the other places where there are places for people to be found. And if you didn't like this video, please don't say so, because you would hurt my feelings, and that would be bad. So anyway, thank you for your time. This is going on way too long. Pocket Sand!